Hi there and welcome to my channel and welcome to another episode of DIY and murder. So if you're new to my channel, what I've been doing is pairing up a DIY and a murder story together. I've changed this a few times, and so currently how I'm doing this is I am walking you through the DIY step by step, and then in one step that's a little bit more tedious and time consuming, I will put the murder story in there. If you like DIYs and if you like murders, then hopefully this whole video will be for you. And as I mentioned, I've done a lot of changes along the way, so this is going to be my last change. Instead of doing a voiceover, I am decided to put myself into the video and share with you from myself the murder story as you guys are watching me do something else. So it's not really just you watching me tell the story. You can see what I'm doing in my process of my DIY. So if you'd like to see my deck makeover and how I did that very cheaply and on a budget, and if you'd like to find out who killed the females of the Rogers family, please keep watching.
So the ingredients of this project include this deck paint. I got it for Dollarama for $4 each, but you can get it at Home Depot. I got this paint tray. I got this paint roller. This is made for more type of dirt or rougher areas. And I got this old broomstick and a paint roller and a broom. So here is what I'm working with. So here is my deck. So you can see the wood is and the paint is really, really old. Like, this is so disgusting. It's so embarrassing to me. I think this was like more of a purple color, but you know, just over time, it has been worn down and definitely needed a makeover. I was really hoping to have a makeover over summer. We just never got to it. So I'm just trying to get a quick easy little fix right now because where I live it snows, so I want to just kind of preserve this wood for the winter at least, and hopefully next year be able to renovate this deck up. But yeah, this is what it looks like right now. Yeah, it's filthy, nasty. I don't like it at all. So the first step here is to clean off the deck. So you can see I have some of my beautiful fall leaves all over the deck here. And you know, I didn't realize when I was doing this that I actually had a leaf blower in my garage. So later on, I definitely do go and use that leaf blower. But yeah, definitely clean up, get all the dirt and grime off the deck. If you really want to be ambitious, optional, you can scrape off the deck. So I had this little scraper thing, but it was taking too long and I was definitely just being lazy and I didn't have enough time to do it. So I definitely winged it, but it's probably better to take off any paint and strip that off beforehand. And yeah, but I didn't. So step 2 is going to paint the outline of the deck. So you can already see I have paint here because I did this wrong. So I ended up painting first, and then I realized after I really needed to paint the perimeter. So that's why I'm making this a step 2, because if you're doing this, this is going to be a lot better for you if you do this as the next step. You know, everything on the outer layer, everything that a paint roller is not going to touch. I definitely recommend taking like a little brush like this and going around and brushing that up. Just get everything all covered, because yeah, a roller just won't fit in there and you want a very nice clean finish, and this is how you're going to do it. But yeah, do this first. So step 3 and the final step is just to paint it. So with this bottle, you're supposed to like attach it to your garden hose and spray your deck, and I didn't want to do that because I felt like that would be too messy, and I believe you're supposed to add water to this, but again, I'm just kind of winging this. I've never done this before. I'm just trying this out the first time. So I ended up mixing 2 colors together, Cedar and Chestnut, I believe. This is the step I'm going to start the murder story. So if you don't want to watch it, you can jump right ahead to 14 minutes of this video, but if not, I hope you enjoy the story.
June 4th, 1989. On this really hot day, there were 3 female bodies found floating in the Bay Area. All of them were bounded with rope, tied with rope on their wrists. All of their mouths were covered with tape. All of them had a concrete block that was 30 pounds tied around their neck, and all of them were naked from the waist down. And obviously there was no ID on the women, so nobody had no idea who they were. And there was thoughts that they had probably been in the water for about 3 days. Luckily for investigators, you know, Florida is pretty hot, and having that concrete block would normally submerge a person and keep them underground. But because it was so hot, like abnormally hot that day, the gases, when we decompose, there was so much gas that gets formed or something that happened like that, and it ended up making all the bodies float to the top. Otherwise, wasn't what the temperature was, these bodies would probably have been submerged to the bottom of the water. Further investigation, it was thought that these people were put into the water in the middle of the bay. Like, they weren't thrown off of anything. It looks like they actually fell in through the bay. Police had no idea still who these women were, and when the media got a hold of this story, you know, it was all over the place, and police actually got a phone call from a hotel manager saying that before, like a few days before this incident, there were 3 women who had gotten a place in his hotel. Then they never came back. So police went and investigated, and you know, all their stuff was still there. And yeah, the women never came back, and just nothing was really touched, nothing was rummaged, even their beds weren't even touched. They were able to identify the 3 women. It was a mother and 2 daughters as a duo. So it was 37-year-old Joan Rogers, 17-year-old Michelle Rogers, and 14-year-old Christie Rogers. The first time they ever left their home of Ohio, go on a week-long trip with their mom to Florida. Dad of the family, his name was Hal Rogers. He was back home, so they called him, told him what's up, and they were able to get dental records to identify that unfortunately, yes, this was the bodies of Joanne, Michelle, and Christie. When they did the autopsy, they found water in the lungs, indicating that all 3 women were alive when they were thrown in the water. So, you know, that's so sad. Point as well, so Hal, the dad in this situation, the husband, he and his brother were considered suspects as well. So his brother, John, he actually was in jail though at the time that this happened because he raped some other women. But apparently he had sexually assaulted Michelle, the daughter. So he was ruled out because he was in prison. And then Hal, he ended up bailing out his brother from jail, you know, and he molested his daughter, and he ended up taking $7,000 US. So just is really suspicious. And Hal was able to kind of explain all those reasonings, and so both of them were no longer on the suspect list and were cleared. You know, police are kind of back to square one here. The thing police wanted to do was look for Joanne's car, right? They drove to Florida, so they were looking for her car, and they ended up finding her car, and there was 2 handwritten notes in the car. One was a note with directions to the hotel, and the other one was directions to a boat launch. So one of these were Joanne's, and one of this was somebody else's. Like the 2 handwritten notes didn't match. So this was analyzed, and the one that didn't match, they didn't know who wrote that. There was very distinct things about it, okay? So this person, they had written out the Courtney Hotel, that's where they were staying, and they had put, for the T in Courtney, a capital T, which is weird, right? Like we only put capital T's in the beginning of sentences, not the middle, so that was weird. And the analyzer also discovered that they wrote their Y's 4 different ways, right? Like most people write their Y the exact same way every time. So that was really different and unique. So very, very unique writing. So in the note that Joanne wrote, she wrote something that said blue/WHT. So cops interpreted that as thinking that she was looking for a blue and white boat. At the time, cops get a tip that this guy named Jason Wilcox is running an unlicensed boat business, and guess what? He has a blue and white boat, and he also has a criminal record of sexual assault. And they went to his house and they found concrete blocks. So, you know, this guy was looking like he was the one. However, before this incident with the Rogers women and children, 2 weeks before that in Florida, a 24-year-old Canadian tourist, a girl, she also had an incident kind of similar. So she ended up going the Sunset Cruise, a boat ride with some guy who, you know, she didn't get his real name. And she said that when he had a blue and white boat. So she said when they got to the middle of the water where no one's around, there's nowhere for her to go, there he tells her if she doesn't have sex with him, he is going to kill her. So she pleads with him not to hurt her and that she's a virgin. When she told him she was a virgin, he got even more excited. He unfortunately proceeded to rape her. Said that, you know, he didn't really seem like he wanted to kill her. They waited till dark, and then he drove the boat back to shore and let her swim back to shore. So he didn't want to kill her. He just really wanted to rape her, I guess. With this tourist, they got her to look at Jason Wilcox's picture to see if she could identify him, and unfortunately she said that wasn't him. There was nothing else really tying to this Jason Wilcox. They ended up letting him go. Over the course of the next 3 years, there were so many tips, and every tip they get, they have to follow up and investigate. And they ended up like conducting interviews with over 800 men, okay, and all of them led to nothing. There's a lot of men who had white and blue boats, so that led to a lot of nothing. And so after this time, you know, police have nothing and they have nothing to go on. They decided to put that handwritten note, that's really all the evidence they have, on a billboard with the hopes that maybe someone will see it. So this was the first time a billboard was ever used in any type of police investigation. Lo and behold, putting that writing on the billboard, there was a lady and she recognized the writing. She had a contractor named Ova Chandler who had done some work for her. So she had the billboard and then she went back to look at the contract writing. He had written stuff out and she felt like it was a match. She submitted it to the police right away. So the analysis was able to identify that it was a match. So Oba Chandler, a little bit about him. So he was a construction worker, had 13 different children with 12 women, 4 of them which he gave up for adoption. He was married at this time, and he lived on a canal near where the bodies were found. And so apparently, like, if you're in a boat and you're talking on that little, you know, mic thing, you know, saying hello 5050, all of them get tracked, probably for safety reasons, I'm assuming, but I really don't know. At the time, the 24-year-old Canadian who got raped there and the time of the homicides, they actually were able to put him in those locations with his boat. So he was taken into custody, and they brought back that 24-year-old Canadian girl to see if she could identify him. And lo and behold, she was able to point him out in a picture and in a lineup. She knew for sure 100% that that was the same guy. So now they have evidence of his handwriting and a witness who, you know, got raped by him, who identified him, and they were able to find the locations of the rape and the homicide. But they wanted a little bit more, so they were able to look at fingerprints as well on the piece of paper that had the writing on there, and they were able to show that his palm print was on there, so there was a match with that as well. So they had a lot going on here. He ended up testifying for himself in his defense against his lawyer's wishes. So he admitted that he did see the 3 women. They were lost and were looking for directions, and he told them directions, and he said he never saw them again. He was eventually charged for 3 counts of kidnapping and first-degree murder, and he was going to serve a death sentence for this. Ended up spending 17 years in jail and actually got executed November 5th, 2011. So the police think happened. So apparently the mom and the girls were going to be there for a week, and then they ended up getting lost, so they decided, they think, to stay an extra day. And while they got lost, they ended up running into Oba and asking for directions to get to the hotel. So they think that, you know, he took the piece of paper, wrote down the directions for the hotel, place in there that he actually met them. Then they think he offered them maybe a boat ride, and, you know, probably till I have a boat, I can give you guys a ride, which, you know, that's where Joanne had written blue and white boat. So that was really key to connecting the color of his boat and maybe what they were looking for. And they think that kind of what happened to the Canadian girl is similar to what happened here. So he took the 3 girls out there. As soon as they got to the middle of nowhere, police, you know, again, there's no evidence for this, but police presume that he sexually assaulted them again. They were found with nothing from their waist down. He thinks they sexually assaulted them and then, you know, did the binding of them and then threw them over the boat. We probably watch a lot of crime, murder, true crime stories, and I do too, but something about hearing that, you know, their eyes were open, they all were thrown overboard alive. Something about that really got to me, just thinking about how the mom and daughters were probably all able to just literally watch each other die one by one. Like, I can't even imagine the motherly instinct that must have been pulling at Joanne to try to save her daughters, and like when they're right in front of her and she couldn't. Like, I don't know, something about that this is just so awful and just so senseless. Like, it's just, ugh, just so senseless. It's really frustrating, but just, yeah, something that actually got me a little teary-eyed hearing that part of, you know, them being alive and getting thrown over. That's what they think happened. In 2014, DNA evidence, you know, just got better over time, was actually able to link Oba to another person who was murdered, another female who was murdered on November 27th, 1991. So, you know, somebody else's murder got solved in this with the DNA evidence. So that was kind of, you know, another good thing. That kind of, like, not a good thing, but it was another thing that ended up as a result of all this. This is the first time they ever used billboards, and started utilizing the billboards for missing children as well after this. So this kind of was the segue to using billboards, because it actually worked really, really well. That is the story of how the 3 Roger women were murdered. In peace to the 3 of them. You know, what a senseless crime. So sad, so sad. This is their first trip they ever had together.
I hope you enjoyed that story, and now back to seeing the final result of this. So just a reminder, this is what the before looked like. So again, disgusting, hideous, absolutely embarrassing. I just absolutely despise what this looks like. Just gross. But here is the after. So I absolutely love how this turned out. And again, I'm just wanting this for this next winter coming up here. So there is some places where it's a little bit patchy, but again, I've never done this before for $8. You know, this is not a bad deal at all. So I'm so happy with how it turned out. It looks so beautiful. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Till next time, bye-bye.